Hey everyone, Robert here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. I've got something a bit different to share with you today. Something that's completely transformed how I approach language learning and might just revolutionize your English journey too. Picture this. You're 28 years old, working in a demanding job, maybe thinking about career advancement or even switching industries entirely. You know that stronger English skills would open doors for you, better job opportunities, international collaborations, maybe even that dream of working abroad. But here's the problem. Traditional English classes fit your busy schedule about as well as a square peg in a round hole. Sound familiar? That was exactly my situation 2 years ago. I was working in project management, pulling long hours, and desperately wanting to improve my English for a potential transfer to our company's London office. I had tried evening classes, but between work deadlines and social commitments, I was missing more sessions than I attended. Language exchange apps felt awkward and unpredictable. Sometimes I'd get paired with people who just wanted to chat about random topics instead of actually helping each other learn. Then something happened that changed everything. I discovered that ChatGPT wasn't just a cool tech toy. It was basically like having a patient, knowledgeable English tutor available 24/7, one who never got tired of my questions and never judged my mistakes. Let me tell you about my first real breakthrough with this approach. I was preparing for a presentation at work, and I wanted to sound more confident and natural. Instead of just hoping for the best, I opened ChatGPT and typed, "I need to give a presentation about quarterly results. Can you help me practice? Ask me questions like a real audience would, and correct my grammar or suggest better ways to phrase things." What happened next blew my mind. ChatGPT started asking me realistic questions about my presentation topic. When I responded, it would point out grammar mistakes I hadn't even noticed, suggest more professional vocabulary, and even help me anticipate follow-up questions. It was like having a presentation coach, English teacher, and supportive colleague all rolled into one. But here's where it gets really interesting. I started realizing that ChatGPT could be customized for exactly the kind of English learning I needed. Unlike a traditional teacher who has to work with a whole class or language apps with preset lessons, I could tell ChatGPT exactly what I wanted to focus on. For instance, when I was struggling with email communication at work, I would paste my draft emails and ask ChatGPT to make them sound more professional or more friendly depending on the situation. It would explain why certain phrases worked better, teach me the subtle differences between "I'd appreciate it if you could" versus "please," and help me understand when to use formal versus casual language. The real game changer was when I started using it for conversation practice. I'd tell ChatGPT to role play different scenarios: job interviews, networking events, difficult conversations with colleagues, even casual social situations. It would play the other person convincingly, respond naturally to what I said, and then give me feedback on my language use. One particularly memorable session was when I was preparing for a job interview. I told ChatGPT, "You're the hiring manager for a senior project management role. Interview me, and after each of my answers, tell me how I could have expressed myself more clearly or professionally." We went through a full mock interview, and ChatGPT pointed out that I was using too many filler words, helped me craft more concise answers, and even suggested better ways to ask questions about the company. When the real interview came, I felt incredibly prepared, not just because I had practiced the content, but because I had practiced the language. I got the job, and my confidence in professional English communication had increased dramatically. But it wasn't just about work. I started using ChatGPT for all kinds of English learning challenges. When I was planning a trip to Australia, I had it teach me Australian slang and cultural communication norms. When I wanted to understand American movies better, I'd ask it to explain idioms and cultural references I didn't catch. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it's completely personalized to your life. If you're interested in cooking, you can have conversations about recipes and cooking techniques. If you're into fitness, you can practice talking about workout routines and nutrition. If you're a parent, you can practice the specific vocabulary and situations you encounter in family life. Here's a practical example of how I structure my ChatGPT English sessions now. I usually start by telling it exactly what I want to work on. I want to practice discussing financial planning. Ask me questions about budgeting, investments, and financial goals, correct any grammar mistakes, and suggest more sophisticated vocabulary when appropriate. Then we have a natural conversation about the topic. ChatGPT asks thoughtful questions, I respond as naturally as possible, and it gives me immediate feedback. Sometimes it will say something like, instead of saying, I want to save money, you could say, I'm looking to build my savings, or I'm focused on increasing my financial reserves. These sound more mature and professional. What I love most is that I can ask follow-up questions about anything I don't understand. If ChatGPT suggests a phrase I've never heard before, I can immediately ask about it. What's the difference between financial reserves and emergency fund? Or when would I use looking to instead of wanting to? Another powerful technique I discovered is using ChatGPT to explain cultural context. English isn't just about grammar and vocabulary, it's about understanding when and how to say things appropriately. I can ask questions like, in American business culture, how do I politely disagree with my boss? Or, what's the difference between British and American email etiquette? The flexibility is incredible. Some days I want to work on pronunciation, so I'll ask ChatGPT to give me tongue twisters or words that are commonly mispronounced. Other days I want to expand my vocabulary, so I'll ask it to teach me synonyms for words I overuse, or to give me more sophisticated ways to express common ideas. One particularly effective exercise is what I call story building. I'll start telling ChatGPT a story about my day, my weekend plans, or a problem I'm dealing with. As I tell the story, it corrects my grammar, suggests better vocabulary, and asks follow-up questions that push me to use more complex language structures. The confidence boost from this approach has been incredible. Because I'm practicing in a judgment-free environment where I can make mistakes without embarrassment, I'm much more willing to take risks with my language use. I try out new phrases, experiment with different tones, and push myself to express complex ideas. What's really exciting is that this is just the beginning. As AI technology continues to improve, the possibilities for personalized language learning are endless. But even right now, with the current technology, you have access to what is essentially a world-class English tutor who's available whenever you need it. Mary's going to share some incredibly practical strategies for maximizing your ChatGPT English sessions, including specific prompts that work amazingly well and how to structure your practice for rapid improvement. Her systematic approach to using AI for language learning has helped dozens of people achieve their English goals faster than they ever thought possible.
Hello, lovely listeners. Mary here, and I'm absolutely thrilled to dive deeper into this topic with you. Robert's experience mirrors my own journey with AI-assisted English learning, but I want to share some specific strategies and techniques that can help you maximize this incredible resource. Let me start with a question that might surprise you. What if I told you that the biggest mistake most people make with ChatGPT for English learning isn't technical, it's psychological? They treat it like Google instead of like a personal coach. When I first started using ChatGPT for English improvement, I was making this exact mistake. I'd ask simple questions like, how do you say this in English? And expect one-word answers. But the magic happens when you engage with it as a learning partner, not just an information source. Here's what changed everything for me. I started every session by setting clear intentions and giving ChatGPT specific instructions about how I wanted to learn. Instead of just asking random questions, I'd begin with something like, I'm a 32-year-old marketing professional who wants to sound more confident in client presentations. I want you to act as my English coach for the next 30 minutes. Ask me challenging questions about marketing strategies, correct my grammar gently but thoroughly, and suggest more sophisticated vocabulary when appropriate. Also, let me know if I'm using filler words or if my explanations could be clearer. This approach transforms ChatGPT from a simple question-answering tool into an interactive learning environment tailored specifically to your needs and goals. Let me share some of the most effective techniques I've developed over the past 2 years of intensive ChatGPT English practice. First, there's what I call contextual correction. Instead of just asking ChatGPT to correct your grammar, ask it to improve your text for specific situations. For example, make this email sound more professional but still friendly, or help me rephrase this to sound more confident during a salary negotiation. This way, you're not just learning grammar rules, you're learning how to adapt your communication style for different contexts. One of my favorite exercises is conversation simulation with feedback. I'll tell ChatGPT to role-play a specific scenario, like a difficult conversation with a landlord about apartment repairs, a networking event where I'm meeting potential business partners, or even a casual conversation at a coffee shop. After each exchange, I ask for detailed feedback on my language use. For instance, I might say, "You're my new neighbor, and I want to introduce myself and ask about the neighborhood. After our conversation, analyze my English and tell me how I could sound more natural and friendly." Then we have the conversation, and ChatGPT gives me incredibly detailed feedback about everything from word choice to cultural appropriateness. Another powerful technique is progressive complexity building. I start with simple conversations about familiar topics, then gradually ask ChatGPT to increase the complexity. We might begin talking about my daily routine, then move to discussing my career goals, then to analyzing complex social issues. Throughout this progression, ChatGPT maintains the same supportive, corrective approach while challenging me to use more sophisticated language. Here's a specific example of how I structure a typical learning session. I usually dedicate 45 minutes to an hour for focused practice, and I break it into 3 phases. Phase 1 is warm-up conversation. I tell ChatGPT about my day, my current challenges, or something I'm excited about. This gets me comfortable speaking naturally while ChatGPT provides gentle corrections and suggestions. Phase 2 is targeted skill practice. This is where I focus on specific areas I want to improve. Maybe I'm working on expressing opinions more confidently, so I'll ask ChatGPT to present me with controversial topics and challenge me to articulate my viewpoints clearly and persuasively. Or maybe I'm trying to improve my storytelling ability, so I'll practice narrating events with more engaging detail and better pacing. Phase 3 is real-world application. I practice language I'll actually need to use soon. If I have a meeting coming up, a presentation to give, or a difficult conversation to have, I rehearse these scenarios with ChatGPT and get feedback on my approach. One technique that's been particularly effective for busy professionals is what I call micro-learning integration. Instead of setting aside large blocks of time for English practice, I use ChatGPT for quick 5-minute learning sessions throughout my day. During a coffee break, I might ask it to explain 3 new idioms. While commuting, I might practice describing what I see around me and ask for vocabulary suggestions. For those struggling with specific aspects of English, ChatGPT can provide incredibly targeted help. If you have trouble with prepositions, you can ask it to create exercises focused specifically on that. If you struggle with the subtle differences between similar words, ChatGPT can provide detailed explanations and create practice scenarios. I've also discovered that ChatGPT is excellent for cultural learning, which is often overlooked in traditional language education. I regularly ask questions like, what's the appropriate way to disagree with someone in American business culture? Or how do I compliment someone's work without sounding insincere? Understanding these cultural nuances has made my English communication much more effective and natural. One of the most valuable aspects of this approach is that it's completely private and judgment-free. You can make mistakes, ask stupid questions, and practice difficult scenarios without any embarrassment. This psychological safety encourages more risk-taking and experimentation, which accelerates learning. For those preparing for specific goals like job interviews, presentations, or exams, ChatGPT can provide incredibly focused preparation. You can simulate the exact types of conversations and scenarios you'll encounter, practice until you feel confident, and get detailed feedback on areas for improvement. I want to share one more advanced technique that's been incredibly powerful: style adaptation practice. I ask ChatGPT to help me practice switching between different communication styles in the same conversation. For example, starting formally with a new client, then becoming more casual as the relationship develops, or learning to adjust my tone when moving from presenting facts to persuading someone to take action. Here's something important to remember: consistency is more valuable than intensity. 15 minutes of daily practice with ChatGPT will improve your English faster than occasional long study sessions. The key is making it a regular part of your routine. As we wrap up today's conversation, I want to emphasize that ChatGPT isn't meant to replace human interaction or traditional learning methods. It's meant to supplement and enhance them. Think of it as your personal training ground where you can build confidence and skills that you'll then apply in real-world situations. The beauty of this approach is that it meets you exactly where you are, whether you're a beginner building basic conversational skills or an advanced learner polishing professional communication. ChatGPT can adapt to your level and help you progress at your own pace. What aspect of your English communication would you most like to improve? How could you use ChatGPT as a practice partner to build confidence in that area? We'd love to hear about your experiences with AI-assisted language learning. Share your successes, challenges, and creative ways you've used ChatGPT for English practice. Have you discovered techniques that work particularly well? What barriers have you encountered and how have you overcome them? And if these conversations are helping you think differently about language learning and personal development, please follow Learn English Through Stories. We're here every week with practical insights and real strategies for growth. Until next time, remember, the best English practice is the practice you actually do consistently. ChatGPT makes that consistency easier and more effective than ever before. Take advantage of this incredible resource, be patient with yourself, and enjoy the journey of becoming a more confident English communicator. Take care, friends.